My name is Linda Sullivan, and I'm 28 years old. If you had asked me a year ago what love looked like, I would have described something steady, built slowly, like a house you're willing to live in even during storms. I thought I had that with David. I really believed I did. We had been together for nearly 2 years. We met at a casual hangout hosted by a mutual friend. Nothing glamorous, cheap beers, mismatched patio chairs, music from someone's half-broken speaker. He was bright, magnetic, the type of man who entered a room and stirred the air around him. He teased everyone, made them laugh, charmed them within minutes. And somehow he chose me. Looking back now, I can see how that felt flattering in all the wrong ways. In the beginning, he said I grounded him. I thought it was a compliment. I didn't realize it meant he would eventually treat me like the anchor pulling him down whenever life wasn't the careless party he wanted. I worked full-time as a project manager, long hours demanding deadlines. David, on the other hand, was between jobs after a company restructure. He said he was figuring things out. I didn't judge him for that. I covered most of the rent, the bills, groceries, even helped him network for new positions. I was raised to believe love meant partnership, and partnership meant you lift the other person until they can stand again. Sometimes I wonder if he ever meant to stand at all. There were signs, of course, little ones that felt disloyal to question. David was naturally flirtatious, touch on the arm, playful grin, lingering laughs with strangers. When it bothered me, I tried to bring it up gently, not wanting to sound jealous or high maintenance. His response was always the same. Come on, Linda, don't be insecure. It's just how I am. Or worse, lighten up. You're reading into things. I convinced myself he was right. I didn't want to be the clingy girlfriend, the stereotype I tried hard not to embody. Only now do I realize how carefully he trained me to silence my intuition. A few months in, his father needed surgery, non-life-threatening, but scary enough to rattle David. He spiraled into anxiety. So I took time off work, drove him 3 hours to the hospital, cooked meals for his family, stayed the weekend sleeping on a stiff recliner. Back then, he held my hand and said, I don't know what I'd do without you. It was the last time he said something that real. Because little by little, things shifted. He spent more and more time on his phone, smiling at messages he didn't share with me. When I asked casually who he was talking to, he'd shrug. Just an old friend, Jenna, his ex, his college ex. He reassured me they had reconnected online. Nothing serious, just nostalgia. I tried to trust him. I wanted to trust him. But something uneasy lodged itself beneath my ribs, a tension I couldn't name without sounding paranoid. That tension exploded the night of our friend's birthday party. It was one of those lively downtown bars with dim lights, sticky floors, loud music, and strangers shouting incomplete conversations across tables. David hyped it up all week. We need a night out, Lynn. Don't be all work and no fun. I agreed. Maybe he was right. Maybe we did need something light. We arrived together holding hands. For the first hour, everything felt almost normal. Drinks, small talk, laughter. David bouncing between people like a spinning coin that never settled. I watched him fond and a little tired, wondering how someone could be so carefree, while I measured every word I spoke. Then I saw her, Jenna. Tall, gorgeous, effortless, wearing a confidence that didn't require permission from anyone. David's face lit up instantly. Oh, Jenna's here, crazy coincidence. He waved her over with the kind of excitement he hadn't shown for me in weeks. She laughed, hugged him, and suddenly I wasn't standing beside my boyfriend anymore. I was standing beside history. History with inside jokes. History with muscle memory. History with emotional shortcuts I could never compete with. They talked. Close. Too close. He leaned in. She leaned back. He touched her arm. She touched his chest. I stood with my half-empty drink, trying to swallow a pit that kept expanding. My stomach twisted not in anger, but in that quiet, sickening way heartbreak begins, not as a sharp stab, but as a slow unraveling. At one point, they drifted onto the dance floor together. A slow song, no. A loud, thumping track with heavy bass, but their bodies met soft, familiar. They danced like two people who remembered exactly how the other moved. And I stood there invisible. Eventually, I stepped out to the patio, needing air that didn't taste like humiliation. Minutes later, David followed, annoyed as if I had abandoned him. What's going on? I asked quietly. You're all over Jenna. It feels wrong. He rolled his eyes so hard it felt rehearsed. Oh my God, Linda, if you're going to act jealous, just stay home. It's a party. I'm having fun. Fun, I repeated. You're dancing with your ex like I'm not even here. He crossed his arms with that condescending smirk, the one he always used when he wanted to win, not understand. Jenna gets me. You're always so serious. You're uptight. You overthink everything. That one cut deeper than I let him see. I'm not overthinking, I said softly. I'm telling you how I feel. Then feel something else, he snapped. Honestly, Lynn, if you're going to act like this, maybe you should go home. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the patio lights flickering between us. The muffled music pounding like a heartbeat I no longer wanted to share. He turned and walked back inside, straight to Jenna, who welcomed him like he belonged to her. I stayed outside longer than I should have, breathing, trying to convince myself I wasn't losing something worth fighting for. Eventually, I ordered a ride home, texted him, heading out. Enjoy your night. He didn't respond. The apartment was silent when I got there. I sat on the couch, still in my shoes, still in makeup. I didn't have the energy to wipe off. Hours passed. My phone stayed dark. The next morning, a friend texted me, "Hey, are you okay?" David left with Jenna last night. I wasn't okay, but something inside me had finally stopped pretending. As the sun rose through the blinds, an unfamiliar clarity settled over me, cold, steady, and quiet. David had crossed a line, and I wasn't stepping over it with him. When David finally came home the next morning, the front door creaked open like it was afraid of waking me. I was already awake, sitting at the kitchen counter with a mug of coffee that had long gone cold. I stared at the doorway as he stepped inside, hair messy, shirt wrinkled, smelling faintly of cheap perfume he didn't recognize as foreign anymore. He froze when he saw me. "Hey," he said casually, like he was returning from a routine morning jog. Wild night. The casualness made my stomach tighten. I didn't answer. I just watched him drop his keys too loudly into the bowl by the door, avoiding my eyes as he poured himself a glass of water. The avoidance was an admission all on its own. "Didn't text back," I said quietly. He shrugged. Phone died. It was the lie he used when he couldn't think of a better lie. "Where were you?" I asked. He took a sip and leaned against the counter with forced nonchalance. "Jenna said I could crash at her place since it was late." Crash. Such a simple word for something that sounded like betrayal scraping against tile. "All night?" I asked. "Yeah," he waved dismissively. "Nothing happened, Linda. We just talked." That was the moment something in me hardened. The version of me that used to explain, rationalize, or compromise, she just stepped aside. What rose in her place was quieter, clearer, and stronger. "You spent the night at your ex home after flirting with her all night while I was right there," I said. "What did you expect me to think?" He rolled his eyes, already irritated that I wasn't accepting the script where he was innocent and I was unreasonable. "God, here we go." "You're so paranoid," he scoffed. "Jenna and I have history. That doesn't mean anything now. We were reminiscing. If you trusted me, this wouldn't be a big deal." "History," I repeated. "You dated her for years. She broke your heart, and now she shows up and you act like I disappeared." He let out an exaggerated laugh. "Oh, please. We danced a little. You're blowing it out of proportion." "A little," I said. "David, you were practically wrapped around her." He set down his cup with a small thud. "You know what? If you're going to keep nagging about this, maybe we should take a break. I need space to figure out what I want." The phrase "what I want" echoed inside my chest. I suddenly realized I wasn't frightened by the idea. Not anymore. "What you want," I said slowly, "includes spending the night with your ex." He shrugged, not even generous enough to pretend it hurt him to admit it. "It didn't mean anything. It was just a fun night. You're making this into a whole thing because you're insecure." There it was, the narrative he needed. If he could make me the problem, he never had to confront who he was. I let the silence drape over the room, a silence heavy enough to make him shift in place uneasy. "Okay," I said finally. He blinked. "Okay, what?" "Okay," I repeated simply. "If that's how you feel, then go take your space." His smirk faltered. Something about me not begging confused him. "Wait," he said, straightening. "You're serious, just like that?" "Yes," I said, standing. "I'm not going to drag you into a relationship you don't respect." I walked past him to the bedroom and grabbed a suitcase. He followed me, disbelief shifting into irritation. "You're really leaving?" "Over one night." His voice rose in pitch. "This is pathetic." I kept packing methodically, quietly, no theatrics. "I thought you loved me," he added, voice straining somewhere between accusation and desperation. "I did," I said, zipping the suitcase. "But love isn't supposed to feel like this." He scoffed. "Wow. Really dramatic, Linda. There's nothing to fix. You're acting crazy." I ignored him, lifted my bag, and walked toward the door. He blocked my path. "You're not even going to try, after everything I've put up with from you." That line, "everything I've put up with from you," nearly made me laugh. Not out of humor, out of clarity. I'm done, I said, stepping past him. If Jenna's so exciting, go chase excitement. He grabbed my arm. Come on, you don't mean this. I gently pulled away. I do. And I left. No slammed doors. No final fight. Just a quiet exit from a place I no longer recognized as home. I spent the night at my friend Maya's place. She made tea I didn't drink and let me sit in silence. I wasn't crying. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't lost. I was empty, but not the kind of empty that comes from loss. The kind that comes from release. Over the next few days, I moved out fully, signed a short-term lease, focused on work. My mind felt clearer with each sunrise. Then the whispers began. Mutual friends texted me. Hey, heard about David. You won't believe what went down. I ignored the first few messages, but eventually curiosity tugged. I met a friend for coffee. She leaned in like she was delivering breaking news. Linda, it's bad. Like really bad. What happened? I asked calmly. After you left, he moved some stuff into Jenna's place. She paused. But Jenna had a boyfriend. My stomach didn't twist. It didn't even budge. She continued, lowering her voice. Her boyfriend confronted both of them at a bar. Huge fight. Turns out David was just a rebound. She never wanted anything real. And now I asked. He quit his part-time job thinking she'd take care of him. She didn't. He's crashing on couches. And, she exhaled, everyone knows what he did to you. People are calling him out. He's losing friends. I nodded. No gloating. No satisfaction. Just a calm acknowledgement that sometimes life sets itself right without your help. I returned to my new apartment that night, dropped my keys on the counter, and sat on the floor beside half-unpacked boxes. I thought about the version of myself who had stayed with David longer than she should have. The woman who kept giving chances to someone who didn't deserve them. I whispered into the quiet room. Not as a confession, but as a promise. I won't be her again. Little did I know David's downfall had only just begun. The days after the breakup felt strangely weightless, as if someone had finally loosened a rope I hadn't realized was wrapped around my ribs. I wasn't euphoric, not even close, but the air around me felt clearer. I could breathe without tiptoeing around someone else's moods. In my new apartment, the silence felt different from the silence I'd lived with before. That old silence was suffocating, filled with all the things I wanted to say, but never did all the things David didn't say, but used against me later. This silence, it was possibility. It was peace. I built a routine that felt like mine for the first time in years. I started going to the gym after work, not to look good or meet some expectation, but because my body needed somewhere to put the stress that had been clogging my bones. I cooked for myself without worrying whether David would complain about the smell of garlic. I left dishes in the sink for a night without being accused of letting things slide. My life wasn't glamorous or dramatic. It was steady, and steady felt like freedom. Meanwhile, David's unraveling was impossible to ignore, not because I paid attention, but because people kept bringing it to me uninvited. I didn't seek updates. They found me anyway, like storm warnings you overhear on the radio, even when you try to tune out. A coworker mentioned seeing him at a bar on a Tuesday night, looking disheveled, ranting to anyone who would listen. Another friend texted screenshots David posting vague quotes online, like, "People always betray you when you're down, and real love forgives everything." I didn't reply. I didn't react. If anything, I felt a quiet pity that surprised me. But pity is not love, and it is certainly not an invitation back. The first direct attempt came 10 days after I left. A text from an unknown number. "Hey, Linda. It's me. Can we talk? I miss you." I stared at the message for a long moment. There was a time when those words would have cracked me open. Now they barely scratched the surface. I deleted it. 2 days later, another message from a different number. "Please, I'm sorry. It was all a stupid mistake. Jenna meant nothing." Then a call. Then a voicemail. I didn't expect his voice to shake me, but hearing it again tugged at old wounds I refused to reopen. "Lynn, please pick up. I know I messed up. I don't know what I'm doing. I want to make things right. Just talk to me." I listened to it once, deleted it, blocked the number. The cycle repeated, only the tone changed with each attempt. Sweet turned to impatient. Impatient slid into guilt-tripping. "Why are you ignoring me?" "This is childish. We had something real. You owe me a conversation. You're punishing me now. That's cruel." Cruel. If only he understood the cruelty of watching someone you love walk straight into the arms of the person who once broke them while you stood 3 feet away. When my phone grew quiet for a few days, I thought he'd finally accepted it. I was wrong. The next wave didn't come from him, it came from the people who used to orbit his life. First, his best friend Caleb messaged me. David's a wreck. He regrets everything. Just give him 5 minutes. I sent a single reply, no. Then came the pressure disguised as kindness. His sister Rebecca called me. We weren't close, but she'd always been polite. Linda, he's falling apart, she said. He hasn't eaten in days. You know how fragile he gets. I leaned back on my couch, staring at the ceiling, letting her words wash over me, like hollow echoes of a script I'd heard too many times. Rebecca, I said calmly, David's emotions are not my responsibility anymore. A beat of silence, then she snapped. You're heartless. He supported you too, you know. Supported me. With what? His presence, his criticism, his chaos. The thought almost made me laugh. I hope he gets the help he needs, I said gently. But it won't be from me. She hung up angrily. Then came the final blow, an email from David's mother, long and dripping with guilt. As a woman, you should understand loyalty. David made mistakes, but he needs a stable influence like you. Come to dinner. We can fix this as a family. Fix. As if I were an appliance. As if David's choices were collective responsibility, not his own. I didn't respond. By week 3, David's desperation reached a new peak. It was a Thursday afternoon when security buzzed my office line. There's someone downstairs asking for you, the guard said. Says it's urgent. I almost didn't go down, but I was tired of feeling hunted by someone who once hated when I asked for basic respect. David stood in the lobby, hands shaking, eyes red. When he saw me, relief washed over his face so fast it made my chest tighten with something between discomfort and exhaustion. Linda, he whispered, stepping toward me. Can we talk, please? Here is fine, I said. He blinked. Here, in the lobby. Yes. He looked around at the corporate security guards, the receptionist typing behind the desk, the sterile lighting. He wanted intimacy. He wanted a moment that felt like a movie where the couple reconciles dramatically. But I wasn't interested in starring in that story anymore. Jenna, she used me, he said, voice cracking. She lied. She cheated on me. She ghosted me. He swallowed hard. I was stupid. I see that now. I see what I lost. I studied him. He looked smaller, not physically, just dimmed. I need you, Linda, he said. You're stable. You're good. You're the only person who ever believed in me. The same traits he once mocked. You don't miss me, I said quietly. You miss the safety net. His face twisted, shifting from desperation to frustration. He always hated when I was right. So that's it, he snapped. You're just done. Yes. You're cold. His voice trembled with anger. After everything I'm going through, you're just walking away. I met his eyes calm and steady. You walked away first. I just didn't follow. He stared at me speechless. And for the first time since I'd met him, David had nothing to say. I turned and walked toward the elevators. He didn't follow. He couldn't. When the doors closed, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. A breath that marked the end of something heavy. Little did I know he wasn't finished yet. His final unraveling had only just begun. A month passed, and life began to feel like something I recognized again. Not the life I had before David, and not the life I had with him, but something new, something steadier, something mine. My routines solidified. Work was exhausting, but rewarding. I started painting again on weekends, something David once mocked as a hobby people use when they're bored. I spent time with friends without worrying whether David would sulk about me ditching him. Slowly, my world rearranged itself into a shape that didn't include him at all. And then, without trying, I met someone new. His name was Daniel, a friend of a coworker, quiet but insightful, with the kind of smile that didn't demand attention but earned it naturally. We didn't jump into anything serious. It started with group hangouts, then one-on-one conversations, then late-night walks where I told myself it was just company, nothing more. He listened without interrupting. He didn't minimize, didn't deflect, didn't compete for emotional space. Peace feels strange when you've lived in chaos long enough, like stepping onto solid ground after months at sea. I wasn't ready for a relationship, but with Daniel, ready didn't feel like a requirement. It felt like something that might come on its own if I gave it time. Meanwhile, David's unraveling accelerated. He plastered vague quotes across social media. People are fake. The ones you trust always leave. Some people never loved you. They loved what you did for them. Friends screenshot them and sent them to me. I always replied with a simple, please stop sending me this. He got into fights at bars, lost another job, fell out with 2 of his closest friends. Jenna blocked him everywhere. Even Rebecca, his sister, the one who'd called me heartless, posted something cryptic like, take accountability for your own mess. Every update reminded me of the same truth: leaving wasn't cruelty. It was survival. But guilt has a way of sneaking in even when you know you don't owe anything. Sometimes late at night, lying in my new bed, I wondered if there was something broken inside me for not missing him, for not hurting the way people expect you to hurt after a 2-year relationship ends. But then I'd remember the patio, his smirk, his dismissiveness, his back turned toward me as he returned to Jenna's open arms. Some wounds cauterized themselves. The next turning point arrived at an event I didn't see coming, a small rooftop birthday gathering for a mutual friend. I almost didn't go. Something in my chest tightened at the idea of running into people who still associated me with David, or worse, running into him. But Maya nudged me. You deserve to show up as yourself, not as someone who's hiding from him. So I went. I wore a soft blue dress the color Daniel once said made my eyes look like they belonged to someone who saw the world clearly. The rooftop was glowing with warm lights and laughter. The view of the city glimmered with the kind of beauty you only notice when your heart is quiet enough to appreciate it. Daniel joined later, slipping an easy smile my way, grounding me in a way that felt reassuring rather than possessive. For a while, the night felt good, simple, light, peaceful. Then David appeared. He looked different, thinner, paler, with tired eyes and hair that hadn't seen a proper cut in months. The instant his gaze locked onto me, something desperate flickered across his face. He moved quickly, weaving through the crowd, like he was afraid I'd disappear if he blinked. Linda, he said, voice cracking, can we talk? Daniel subtly stepped back, giving us space without making it a performance. That gesture alone told me more about healthy love than anything David ever offered. I sighed softly. Let's go over here. We walked toward the edge of the rooftop where the wind brushed cool air against my skin. David looked at me like a man who'd just found the last source of water in a desert. I've been a mess, he said, voice trembling. Everything's falling apart. Jenna ruined me. She lied, used me, threw me out like trash. I didn't know where else to turn. I listened, but something in his words felt familiar, because it wasn't about remorse. It was about desperation, about wanting refuge. I'm alone, he continued. Broke. My friends won't talk to me. My own sister is mad at me. I'm applying for jobs everywhere and nothing's working. And you, his voice cracked. You moved on like I never mattered. The accusation stung, but not for the reason he wanted. It stung because it showed he still didn't understand. I didn't move on, I said softly. I healed. He swallowed hard. Linda, please, I need you. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I just didn't realize it until I lost you. A few people began glancing our way. He noticed panic flickering across his face. Please, he whispered, stepping closer. Just give me another chance. I'll change. I swear. I took a slow breath. The wind tugged at my dress. City lights blurred behind him. Then I said the words he once threw at me like a dagger. If you're going to beg like this, stay away. I met his eyes steady and unshaken. It doesn't mean anything to me now. He reeled back as if slapped. What he whispered, that's cruel. Cruel. He used that word so freely whenever I refused to absorb his consequences. Understand? I asked quietly. Like how you understood my feelings at the party. His expression twisted hurt anger, disbelief. You miss me, he insisted weakly. You're just pretending. No, I said. I've built something better. I'm not your safety net anymore. You're a closed door. He reached for my arm, desperate. I stepped back, not harshly, just firmly. I'm done, David. Just then, Daniel approached from a respectful distance, but close enough to make it clear I wasn't standing alone anymore. David saw the contrast between them, and something in him crumbled, truly crumbled. You'll end up alone, he shouted suddenly, voice cracking as heads turned. No one will put up with you the way I did. I didn't flinch. He stormed out, humiliated, shoving past people on his way down the stairs. The party resumed in awkward murmurs. Daniel reached my side, touching my arm gently. You okay? He asked. I nodded. For the first time in a long time, the answer felt true. After the rooftop incident, David disappeared from my life with a suddenness that felt almost surreal. No more messages from unknown numbers. No more late-night calls. No more guilt-laced apologies or furious accusations. Silence, real silence, finally settled around me. It was the kind of silence that feels like the closing of a door. Not slammed, not forced shut, just carefully, naturally, finished. I didn't ask about him. I didn't stalk his social media. I didn't sit with friends and dissect his every move. Life was too full for that now. But people talk, especially when a drama burns hot and then fizzles out into embers. Updates found their way to me whether I wanted them or not. A friend mentioned seeing him back in his hometown living with his parents again. Another said he'd burned through what little savings he had. Someone else said he was applying to low-paying jobs he never would have considered before. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel pity either. Just distance. A clean, unglued distance. The truth was simple. His life was no longer something I had to carry. Meanwhile, mine kept growing in directions I hadn't anticipated. Work became a place I enjoyed again. With the promotion, I led projects instead of drowning in them. My colleagues respected me, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was rushing home to manage someone else's emotional chaos while neglecting my own. I started cooking real meals again. Slow, fragrant dishes that filled the apartment with warmth. I redecorated my space with soft lighting, warm colors, and touches of myself that had been muted for too long. A plant in the corner, a watercolor painting on the wall, a stack of novels by my bed. Daniel was in my life too, but gently, like a hand resting on my shoulder instead of gripping it. We weren't rushing toward labels or expectations. We were exploring, discovering, learning each other's rhythms. Sometimes he joined me on my evening walks. Sometimes we spent Sundays reading on opposite ends of the couch, quietly content. We talked not in circles, not in games, but with clarity. One night he asked, "Do you ever think about going back?" I shook my head instantly, not out of spite, but truth. "No," I said. "I'm not angry anymore. Just done." He nodded, eyes soft with understanding. That's a good place to be. Healing rarely looks like dramatic breakthroughs. More often, it looks like routine, small choices that slowly rebuild your sense of self. For me, it looked like waking up without dread, cooking breakfast without being criticized for the seasoning, listening to music David always claimed was too depressing or too weird, laughing freely, sleeping peacefully, trusting myself again. Bit by bit, I stopped flinching at my own memories. I stopped feeling ashamed that I stayed as long as I did. I stopped blaming myself for not leaving sooner. I stopped replaying every red flag like a failure. Staying didn't mean I was weak. Leaving didn't mean I was heartless. It meant I was human. And healing meant forgiving myself for being human. About 3 months after the rooftop party, I ran into one of David's old friends at a grocery store. We exchanged small talk, the kind that skims the surface of things without fully diving in. Then quietly he said, "I'm glad you got out when you did." I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. The sincerity in his expression said enough. People reveal themselves over time. David revealed himself to everyone eventually, not just to me. When I got home, I placed the groceries on the counter, took a moment, and let the truth wash through me. I really was free. One evening, Daniel and I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights blink awake. The air was cool, the kind that feels like a sigh against your skin. He leaned his elbow on the railing, looking thoughtful. "You seem lighter lately," he said. "I feel lighter," I replied. "What changed?" I thought for a long moment before answering. "I did." He smiled, a warm, slow smile that made something inside me settle. And for the first time since the night on the patio with David, I felt a deep, steady certainty. Not about Daniel, not even about us, but about me. I wasn't the woman who begged for breadcrumbs of affection. I wasn't the woman who gave more than she could afford. I wasn't the woman who swallowed her feelings to avoid conflict. I had grown into someone sturdier, someone truer, someone I liked. Months later, a mutual friend told me David had finally stopped talking about me. He'd begun dating someone new. It didn't stir anything in me, not jealousy, not fear, not nostalgia. If anything, it felt like the final page of a chapter I had already closed. Healing is not about pretending the past didn't happen. It's about accepting it happened and that you survived it. Some people come into your life like a storm ripping through everything. Some come in like a gentle breeze helping you breathe again. And some arrive like sunlight, quiet, steady, soft, but capable of warming everything they touch. David was the storm. Daniel was the breeze. But the sunlight, that came from me. I don't tell this story for sympathy. I don't tell it for validation. I tell it because too many people stay in relationships where they mistake chaos for passion, criticism for honesty, and manipulation for love. Leaving isn't failure. Staying until you understand is not foolishness. Growing afterward, that's the victory. If someone asked me now what love looks like, I wouldn't describe something steady or cautious or safe. I would describe something honest, something kind, something peaceful, something that never asks you to disappear to make someone else feel whole. And I would describe this truth. Some doors close gently, some slam, but the ones that stay shut are the ones that save us.